and welcome to another edition of the Club Life podcast. I'm Darren Flynn, the Chief Corporate Affairs Officer at Clubs New South Wales. In this episode, we're going to speak with the man who oversees one of the most iconic and highly trusted volunteer organisations in Australia. Steve Pearce is the CEO of Surf Life Saving New South Wales, which encompasses some 76,000 volunteers from 129 surf life saving clubs right across the state. It's also an organisation which has had a long association with registered clubs. So let's bring him in now. Steve Pearce, welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
You've spent much of your working life in emergency services, be it Fire and Rescue New South Wales, the SES and Surf Life Saving. It's confronting enough dealing with an emergency situation as a member of the public. Why would you want it to be your whole career?
Yeah, they say I've got more uniforms in my wardrobe than anyone else, mate. So, no, it's something I fell into. Surprisingly, I always wanted to be a police officer. And at the time, they found out that I was colourblind, and so which sort of stopped my progression into the police service. Then a few mates decided they were going to apply for the fire brigade, never thought about it. We all applied. There was 10,000 applicants. They took 100 people. None of them got in, and I got chosen. So there was obviously a few Steve Pearces that applied that day and got my results mixed up with someone else, and that's what started the journey.
And yet you've stuck with it in one way or another for the past sort of 30 years. What was it about that sector that appealed to you so much?
Oh, look, you know what? I still talk about it now. It's the camaraderie. It's every day is different. You love to help people. And you really make a difference, regardless of what emergency service you're in. And during the journey, you see a lot of pretty ordinary things, and you get exposed to a lot of ordinary things. And that way, probably a bit of a strong advocate about mental health and psychological well-being, because I've seen so many colleagues fall over the years with that. And
we're going to talk a bit more about that a little bit later in the chat. What have been some of the more challenging emergencies that you've had to deal with over the years in your various roles?
Oh, look, I think, when I was out in regional New South Wales, as a firefighter and looking after the firefighters out there as an executive officer, just the amount of roadside fatalities out there, the big bushfire campaign events out there, pretty exciting and long. The flooding campaign's really relevant at the moment here, Darren, when I was with the SES, and I was fortunate enough to help manage some of the largest floods in New South Wales at the time. And probably the most challenging thing is when you see the impact on the person there. Like you're running in, they're running out, but they're in fear, and you're just going in to do what you got to do.
We're going to talk about Surf Life Saving in a moment, but firstly, your association with registered clubs actually dates back some time. In fact, your first jobs were in registered clubs. Tell us about that.
This is going a long, long, long way back. Many careers. Can I just emphasise that straight away? But, I've had an affinity for clubs for quite a while. I started my career, if you want to call it that, picking up glass in Currumbin Pub and a lot of other clubs around the place. Because I was always a bit of a large boy at the time, I started working on the doors around a lot of the clubs around Sydney, and probably got to know a lot of the managers around all the clubs around Sydney. But that was, I guess, my first foray into clubs, just in that immediate sense. But since obviously with surf, just having that deeper dive into exactly what clubs do, and Clubs New South Wales, really has given me a different perspective and a different appreciation of exactly what clubs do.
And the other thing that you should be appreciative of the industry for is introducing you to your wife.
Oh, correct. Yeah. So, yes, St George Leagues Club, that's a claim to fame there, where I met my wife, Leanne, and that was 36 years ago. So I've got a lot to be thankful for clubs.
Now let's talk about Surf Life Saving. How did you end up landing the role as CEO of Surf Life Saving New South Wales?
Yeah, look, I'd finished my time at the SES, and I'd been in consulting for a few years, consulting with large corporates for emergency and crisis management. And all of a sudden, quite a few recruiters started reaching out saying, look, this position has come up. Would you be interested in applying? And it was actually really interesting, because I can remember many, many years before that, I was being interviewed at a conference, and they said, if you could be the commissioner of any emergency service or any organisation in Australia, what would you like to do? And at the time I said, I'd love to be in charge of Surf Life Saving. I just saw there was so much relevance, so iconic, but so much opportunity for it.
And one of the most trusted brands in Australia.
Totally. Yep.
Now, there were some issues prior to your arrival at Surf Life Saving, so governance clearly a big focus. Tell us about the commitment, or your commitment, to improving standards when you accepted the role.
Yeah, looking at, and that was back in 2017 when I came in, and the organisation had a bit of a hiccup with governance. And so my remit when I was brought into the organisation was obviously to really emphasise and magnify the governance arrangements. Volunteer organisations sometimes, probably don't have the highest governance requirements, and I was asked to come in to do that. Also move the organisation just not as a life-saving entity, but into an emergency service as well, strategically for a whole raft of reasons, and I guess some cultural change there as well. And and I'd have to say, look, that the changes that the organisation's done, that the team have done, and through the board, the board had complete commitment, and that was the big thing here, Darren, was the board was so adamant and strong behind this governance drive that we introduced some governance arrangements that I think are really exemplars now within the entire industry.
And that was going to be my next question. What were the changes you put in place? Clearly a big focus on governance and so crucial to winning back public trust. What were some of the key changes?
Oh, look, they say, that the greatest way to build trust is to make sure you shine a light everywhere. So, we made sure we had complete transparency with everything. The way that we did our accounting and our finances, the way that, we brought in additional audit levels right throughout the organisation. The way that the board operated, we changed the operations and the requirements of the boards, because the boards in any entity, whether it's be like a small club or whether it be like a really large entity like Surf Life Saving, they're all the same. They're volunteer directors. You've got to make sure they're skilled, they understand their fiduciary responsibilities, and just basically ensure that management really embrace governance. So it's just not a bolt-on, it's something that you have to do. It's something that you're really committed to follow through. And it was a rocky road for everyone, including myself, but we're in a really great place now.
You mentioned this, I mentioned the 76,000 volunteers in the intro. Obviously one of the great strengths of Surf Life Saving New South Wales, but it is also somewhat of a challenge. How difficult is it managing an organisation with so many volunteers?
Yeah, well, it's not 76 anymore, mate. It's 81,000 now. So we're still a big growing organisation moving forward, and we have 129 clubs, and this is where I think it's why it's so easy to work with Clubs New South Wales, because we are so like in many ways. Our 129 clubs are all separate legal entities. They all have to work under constitutions. They all need to understand governance as well. And that is a challenge, because you have to remember our members are just volunteers. Some come from really skilled backgrounds and some are just mums and dads. And the trick, or the challenge is to ensure that you've got an appropriate amount of accountability and governance without going over the top, because at the end of the day, you want to ensure that everyone wants to stay part of the organisation. So have fun, be relevant, but also be accountable.
I suppose the other challenge is trying to manage those or have oversight of 129 individual surf clubs, all with their own finances and all with their own operating systems.
Yeah, so we've done a lot, particularly to try and customise or socialise the same platforms across all the entities. Some are adopted, some aren't. So, it's still some work to go there. Cybersecurity is a huge thing for us now. So, we think we've got our house in order, touch wood, at the head office level. But we really need to look after the clubs, because we have had instances where the clubs have unfortunately succumbed to phishing attempts, and they've lost some money here and there as well. So that's, I guess, our next challenge is about making sure the clubs are really aware of the privacy and the data requirements moving forward without making it really bureaucratic. But again, a lot of these clubs are only small clubs, mums and dads that are just directors. And so it's our responsibility to try and help them without making it too onerous and too bureaucratic for them.
How unique is Surf Life Saving globally? Obviously, there are other organisations in other countries which are focused on water safety, and certainly lifeguards are commonplace around the world. But how unique is Surf Life Saving?
This is really unique in Australia, because we have so many international visitors come, and when they walk on the beach and they're chatting to the guys and girls in their red and yellow, they can't believe that they're actually not getting paid for it. They're volunteers. We're really fortunate here in New South Wales that we have around 81,000 members, and out of the 81,000, over 21,000 are frontline feet in the sand lifesavers, so they can be mobilised at any time. So we're a really big entity, and in fact, because we're also an emergency service, when you look at membership numbers, we are actually the largest membership emergency service in Australasia. So it's a big thing. It's a big responsibility for us. It's a really iconic brand. I think we were rated third in Australia in regards to the branding of it now, and we do a lot to try and protect that brand, because it is really important. As you said earlier, it's a trusted, iconic brand.
You'd had obviously some interaction with the club industry prior to arriving at Surf Life Saving, but did you realise the level of support that registered clubs delivered for your surf clubs?
Had no idea. And in fact, to tell the truth, mate, and we'll probably disclose this right now, as you know, your clubs, your listeners, hopefully they do know that Clubs in New South Wales are our primary partner. They're the longest partnership that Surf Life Saving has ever had. And I just presumed that was our only touch point. But it was until we started to delve down and you see the local relationships, you know, with different clubs and with different life-saving clubs. It had always been there, but it was just sporadic everywhere. And through, I guess, our large partnership, it's really tied it together, and it's a really authentic partnership. It's not just an administrative thing. It's not an arbitrary, it's just a dollar value. Like, we get so much more out of the partnership with clubs, and I'm sure clubs do as well with surf, yeah.
One of the programs that Clubs New South Wales has worked with Surf Life Saving on over the years has been the Beach to Bush program. Tell us a little bit, for those who aren't familiar with Beach to Bush, what it's all about.
It is exactly what you said. We take the beach to the bush. So we've done this program for around over 30 years now. Clubs have been a great supporter of that, and that's where we take lifesavers. They go out into regional New South Wales and they engage a whole bunch of schools and school children over a 3-week period. And I think this year we interfaced with 12,000 children directly, did over 110 schools. I forget how many thousands of kilometres they travelled. But everywhere you'd see out in regional New South Wales, you'd see the red and yellow lifesavers out there in the red dust, you know, of Tamworth, you name it, White Cliffs. They would be everywhere. And it's just about taking water safety awareness and education to kids in the bush that don't get the opportunity to come to the coastline to experience that.
And of course, the other big component of our relationship is the state champs, which are on at the moment as we're recording this podcast. Tell us about the logistical effort that goes into organising those championships every year.
So we have over 5,000 competitors over a 2-week period. That's larger than the Commonwealth Games. We currently are running this at Manly. We've been there for 5 years. This is our last year at Manly, and we're moving it to another new location to be announced shortly. But the logistics is immense. So if people know the Manly area, it runs from Queenscliff Beach around the corner all the way to the end to Manly. And it is just a sea of colour, a sea of pink nippers. So when you think of soldier crabs running up and down the beach, you see thousands of nippers running up and down the beach. It's there for the youth, it's there for elite athletes. It's a really lovely blend, and it's a great showcase for us.
And you mentioned 5,000 competitors, but you've also got parents and friends and all the rest of it coming down as well. So
Totally.
a huge economic boom for the area hosting.
We have both the state championships and we also have a regional championships as well. But, you know, the economic inject, you know, to the local business community is enormous. I think off the top of my head, and don't hold me to it, it's around 12 million over a 2-week period there just for the Northern Beaches area. You know, accommodation, food, drink, everything else you can imagine.
Any hints on where we're going next?
I've been sworn to secrecy at the moment, but Darren, you'll like it.
All right, looking forward to hearing more about that. Now, let's talk, we mentioned briefly earlier mental health and your passion for mental health. Why is it so important to you personally?
It's because of, you know, predominantly my background, you know, so in emergency services, you really see the trauma that this imparts on people. We also see, unfortunately, in surf lifesaving, people self-harming. So we actually get called to a lot of self-harm incidents, and it is, you know, close to me because it's a horrible mantle to say that you have, but I'm a survivor of suicide. And when I say that, my father committed suicide many, many years ago, and in like, you know, a horrific way. And I think I wasn't aware of the frequency and the impact of that until it actually impacted our family. Then when I went into the emergency services, you could see how it impacted other people as well. So because lifesavers, you know, we do around, you know, 4,500 rescues a year, and we go to like an enormous amount of tragic drownings and CPR resuscitations. It's really traumatic. So it's our responsibility as the management to make sure that we really do look after our volunteers, because, you know, psychological well-being is just so vulnerable now. So that's the reason why we have like really significant programs in surf lifesaving to look after our people, and in part we actually look after their families. So if you're a lifesaver and you're exposed to like a pretty yucky incident, we make sure that if your family needs help, we also provide that assistance and support to your family as well. So it's been big to me, but it's also big in the clubs industry as well. Like I've seen through your award programs, just some of the programs that your clubs do are just amazing when it comes down to mental health programs. Yeah.
And you're a judge in the Clubs and Community Awards as well, so you get to see some of this work firsthand. Do you think as a society we've become more adept at dealing with suicide and having conversations about mental health than we were, say, 20 or 30 years ago?
Yeah, look, I think it's not a taboo subject anymore. And I've got a mate, Gus Warland. He is the CEO and founder of Gotcha for Life. He really drives this as well. But it is prevalent in society, and people just need to have that conversation. And as you said, like, when I read through a lot of the nominations for the club awards, and there's 2 weeks of my life I'll never get back reading thousands and thousands of nominations. Some of the clubs do some amazing programs just specifically in that area.
Well, we've got you lined up for your judging work for 2025, so I hope you've ruled out a couple of weeks in your diary there.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Now, work-life balance is an increasingly important issue. You yourself would know all about that because you live down around the Stanwell Tops area, and you travel up to Belrose most days for work. How do you find that long commute, and how do you feel the hours other than listening to the Club Life podcast?
Oh, look, and excuse the French, but it's a shit commute. But you do need to also look after your mental and your physical well-being. So I have to try and have a balance. Like, I'm a bit of a red frog. I drink red cordial, eat red frogs. Like I run pretty hard, but I love working out the gym. Surfing is a really great way for me to reduce my stress. When you hear about this thing about, the wave washing over you, it is true for me. It just sort of like washes away my stress anyhow. And you've got to make time for family. And I'm really adamant with my staff and my managers. You say, don't make the mistakes, that I've made in the past. Learn from others. And you really do have to have a really good balance to keep yourself in that sort of equilibrium, moving forward,
How do you find enough hours in the day? I mean, given that you're travelling, I'm assuming up to 2.5, 3 hours a day some days, given bad traffic. How do you find time to exercise, to spend time with family and get everything you need to do as a CEO done as well?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think, it's just how you're made. And this morning, for example, like I was up at 4:30, get to the gym and try and get in the pool as well. We've got the big flood operations on, so I was out at Homebush with all the other emergency services then doing the business. But one good thing about the commute, you save up all your phone calls. And so I can run all the way home for 2 hours and be on the phone all the way home, mate. So I'm still working all the way home in the traffic.
Now, you're still an active surf lifesaver as well. Tell us how often and where you can be seen donning the red and yellow.
Yeah, look, it's not a pretty picture, so me and budgies, let me tell you. But I'm a volunteer lifesaver down at Stanwell Park. I do love it. I can remember I saw this thing like decades and decades ago with Bob Ansett. He used to come down and work on the front desk with his check-in staff one day every month. And that always stuck with me, and it really resonates with me that sometimes, like as a CEO or a leader, whatever you want to term it, you have to walk the walk. And I do it because I really love it, but you get to really understand and appreciate, the volunteers have to put up with. And so it gives me a different perspective. So if I'm bringing in what I think is some really great idea, and it's actually going to be really crap when it gets executed, I kind of understand that as well. So it's not a prerequisite of the position, don't get me wrong, but we have a really significant amount of staff that are also volunteer lifesavers, which is fantastic.
What are your general tips on leadership from your standpoint? You run a pretty major organisation in this country. How do you go about your leadership responsibilities?
Yeah, like a bloke once said to me, like an old boss of mine, he said, Steve, he said, never listen to your own publicity. So just because you're the CEO doesn't mean you're higher or beyond anyone else. And that's really resonated with me. So I think authenticity, you really got to be authentic, and you've got to be transparent. You've got to be approachable. It sounds like all the buzzwords, but you really do have to do it. You have to be accountable. So, the buck stops with you. And that's why, even though, I think we have a really great work environment, everyone's held accountable. If you make a mistake, you allow one mistake, make the second mistake, well, you're in trouble. And the same with me. So it's just that authenticity and transparency, I think, is probably the real key things.
This one's a two-part question. What do you love most about your job, and what parts of it do you perhaps not enjoy quite so much?
I think I just love the brand, Darren. I love the fact that you can walk into a room and you can say, I am the CEO of an organisation. You've got 81,000 members. It's one of the trusted and most iconic organisations. Not many people get to be in that position, so I'm really lucky to do that. What do I not like about it so much? We've got 81,000 members and they all have their own opinions. So you've got to try and listen to accommodate to everyone's opinions.
There might be a few club bosses who can understand your perspective there, no doubt.
I think so, mate, yeah.
Now, the club industry, we've mentioned huge supporters of Surf Life Saving. Well, what do you admire most about the industry? You've stood very proudly side by side with Clubs New South Wales and the Your Local Club brand for many years now.
Totally.
Why are you so proud of that association?
I'll tell you what, so when Surf Life Saving had its hiccup, people can Google if they like, we succumbed to a pretty large fraud in the organisation that really shook the organisation to its core. Clubs New South Wales were a partner at the time, and clubs stood by Surf then. Moving forward with clubs, and then the issues started coming in about gaming and pokies, we stood firmly with clubs, not because it was a reciprocation, but we really do see the value of what clubs do in the community. It's not just a venue for drinking or anything like that. It's a community hub, it's a social hub. I've been to nearly every one of your awards since I've been here as the CEO, and I think I've only missed one. And I would always say, I'd say to everyone, your chairs, your CEOs, you just need to bloody advertise it more, because I don't think people really understand the value that clubs provide in the community until you sit there and you hear the stories and you think, they're pretty bloody good. There's one, I'm going to get this wrong, but is it the Broken Hill Musicians Club? Is that the one I'm thinking of? There's some funny characters up there, but they do some great jobs. Yeah.
Michael Bolton, the CEO, has made a couple of very entertaining acceptance speeches.
Exactly right,
Clubs and Community Awards, so excellent. Now, I haven't mentioned that your first full-time job was working as a forklift driver.
Yeah.
Is that where your love of outback truckers comes from?
Yeah, look, I am a bogan. No, my mother wanted me to be a solicitor, and I ended up being a forklift driver in the recession that we had to have. So everyone had to grab a job, and because I needed to draw in money to support everyone, and that was it. I am a coastal boy, but I am a full bogan with outback truckers. Anyone want to watch the best show in the world? 7:30 every Tuesday night. If there's one thing Darren and I race home for on a Tuesday, and my wife despises it and hates it, to sit there and watch outback truckers.
We'll have to hit Channel 7 up for some advertising revenue for this podcast. Are you a big TV watcher, or is that just a show that you can't miss?
Mate, I don't have time to watch TV. I get in trouble at home because Leanne wants to watch some series in Netflix. I just don't get time. Like you work, you're taking calls all the time, and the job in Surf as a CEO, you have to be 24/7 accessible, and I am, and I love doing that, to the board and to the members. So I'm taking calls all the time. Yeah, very rarely get to watch telly at all, mate. In fact, it's great to just go to the movies, to the cinema that is, and sit there sometimes to watch a movie and have the phone off.
Before we go, a couple of quick questions. What's the biggest challenge facing Surf Life Saving in the decades to come?
I would say volunteerism. Even though we are still growing exponentially every year, like we have about a 2% growth percentile every year. Cost of living, just how busy lifestyles are. People are really struggling to find the time to volunteer and volunteer in the traditional way that we've done over the last 100 years for lifesaving. So we are doing transformational change and trying to reimagine how we deliver lifesaving services to accommodate people's time to volunteer.
Are young people still getting into the bronze medallion as much as they always have done?
Yeah, we get people in, we lose them around the 14 to 21-year-old because they're off in their schooling and then the university, then they sort of come back again as well. Even though we grow every year, we still have a big churn. We still lose a lot of people because they come in, they do what they want to do. But, people are really struggling with time. And I would imagine it may be the same like within the clubs industry where people do a lot of volunteering work as well.
Talked about the big challenge. What about the big opportunity? Is there a next big opportunity for Surf Life Saving?
Yeah, look, the risk and the opportunity is the volunteer area, because we offer so many opportunities for people when they do become a volunteer lifesaver. We train them up in so many different schools that they can then transport that into a career. So many employers I know, when they look at a CV, if they see they're a volunteer in lifesaving, they know they're coming with ready-made management and emergency experience and first aid and leadership. So it's about the opportunity is, just communicating that more so we can actually harness more people to be part of the organisation.
What do you do away from work? Obviously, we know you're a fitness fanatic. What do you spend your leisure hours doing?
Both my boys are 30, they've moved away, so we had to replace it with another child, and we bought the world's most expensive dog, Darren. It's like buying a small car, the cost, but love the bloody things are out. We take the dog walking, gives us an excuse to go everywhere. But yeah, as I said, even though I try and get away from work, the biggest part of my relaxation is to get down the beach.
And of course, your family, we talked about your wife, but two sons as well. They're a big part of your life.
Oh, totally. You know, so one's a police officer up in Newcastle, the other one's a physiotherapist. Now that they're 30, you don't get to spend as much time, but you try and get that quality time with everyone. And the bank of dad will take them overseas every now and then, like with their girlfriends and wives. So I think it just comes back to trying to find that balance. You know, like everyone has their own sort of balance in regards to things away from work, and for mine is trying to keep fit and with the family. And as I said, I actually just like to get down the beach and to be like the secret boss, the undercover boss, and I just watch everyone do their thing.
Steve, one final question. Why do you think registered clubs will still be around in 100 years' time?
I think community need them. It's as simple as that. When you see, particularly in our world with the emergencies, where do they flock to, for comfort and support and refuge? They go to their local club, predominantly. It is a social hub. Clubs will be here for another 200 years. They're just integral to society. And I'm not saying that because I'm sitting in front of the club's banner here. It's just a truism. People have to accept that clubs are here for a long, long time.
Well, Steve, it's not often you talk to the man with the dream job, but I have done today. So thanks for coming in. Thanks for your time. Thanks for keeping the beaches safe and for all the work you do and for the long association with the New South Wales club industry. Steve Pearce, thanks very much.
Thank you, Darren.
Steve Pearce there, the CEO of Surf Life Saving New South Wales. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Club Life podcast. We'll be back again in a fortnight with another exciting guest. If you're a new listener, our back catalogue of episodes is available on clublife.com.au, Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you consume your podcasts. Search Club Life Podcast to find us and subscribe so you never miss a new episode. If you have a suggestion on who might make an interesting guest, get in touch with the team by emailing clublife@clubsnsw.com.au. Thanks for listening and bye for now.